Hi, I'm Jonathan Leeman.
I'm Mark Dever.
Welcome to this episode of 9 Marks Pastors Talk. 9 Marks exists to help pastors build healthy churches. Learn more at 9marks.org. And if you're interested in giving, go to 9marks.org/talk. With us today, we have a friend of mine. We're taking pictures at the same time. David Adams. David, would you call yourself a missionary? Is that what you are? Or would you just say you're a Christian?
I think it's more and more kind of leaning into that.
You're a Christian living in Colombia.
That's right.
Medellin, Colombia.
That's right. Yep.
You grew up there for
I was born in Colombia, and then I was 3 when our family came back. So didn't do a whole lot of growing up there.
Okay, right. Now, I noticed that whenever you say it, you say Colombia.
Yeah.
Do I sound wrong when I say Colombia?
He's lived there 14 years.
It sounds great when you say Colombia because we are in the district right now.
But you say Colombia.
You say Colombia.
Well, Colombia, right? But we're in the district. We're in the district of
Colombia.
No, we're not. Colombia.
14 years ago, you started a Christian publishing company.
That's right.
Named Poema.
Did you start it?
Yes, sir.
What does Poema publish?
You seem a little young to have started a company 14 years ago.
He just looks young. He's
seat
not
is really
young.
low. Like, and you're imposing over there. Yeah.
I try to wear dark color and make me look less big, and it doesn't work.
How old are you?
The vertical stripes.
Okay.
Okay.
How old are you?
47.
No.
Yes, sir.
He's got a young face.
Yeah.
Because you're older than Jonathan, but he looks ancient.
51.
Well, close.
How old are your kids?
The oldest is 18.
Yeah. My oldest is 3 months.
You started this publishing company 14 years ago.
Yes, sir.
Called Poema. Poema means...
It's that word from Ephesians 2. We is workmanship, or some of the translations say handiwork.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. And
so it's like a work of art. It's like a masterpiece kind of.
You publish what kind of material?
Christian, gospel-centered resources, mostly trying to build up the church.
Only Christian.
Yes, sir.
How much of it is translated from English material? How much of it is freshly written in Spanish?
The majority of what we do is translated from English. A small percentage of what we do are new works in Spanish.
And you're trying to grow that part, presumably.
That's correct. Yep.
As you kind of pepper the Spanish-speaking world with hopefully good material.
With good resources.
Translated English, more and more writers there will...
That's right. Build up the next generation of
Does
writers.
the Spanish-speaking world get tired of hearing from Colombia? I mean, is Colombia like the New York City of the Spanish-speaking world, or is that Mexico City, or is that Madrid? I mean, how does Colombia figure in the Spanish-speaking world as not a Spanish speaker?
Yeah. So we are actually we're the country with the third most Spanish speakers after Mexico and
the U.S.
That's right. And so I think Colombian Spanish is a fairly neutral Spanish. And we try to run our translations through as many countries as possible. So like we'll have a translator from one country. We'll try to have an editor from another country, and then maybe proof or a couple proofs from other regions, so that we kind of weed out any problematic words that could be misunderstood.
I guess what I was wondering is, were I a native Spanish speaker, would I be used to hearing people from the Dominican Republic, or people from Argentina, or people from Spain, or people from Mexico having different, distinct accents and vocabularies? Yeah,
there's different accents and vocabularies, but since the majority of our content is translated, we're getting guys from Washington, publishing guys from Washington, D.C., or from Minneapolis, or from North Carolina.
But you're getting translated there in Colombia, presumably.
Yes, although we have translators in different countries. So that's what we're trying to do is to just have it as much of an international Spanish as possible.
And the goal of this conversation is to think about, I want to come back to your publishing, but the larger goal is to think about Christianity in Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
And then, how your own work intersects with that. But let's just start with
not
the
the District of Colombia, but the country of Colombia.
Yeah, that's right. That's the topic.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification, Mark.
Yeah.
I think probably most Americans would associate your country with drug cartels.
That's right.
Is that a fair association or an unfair association?
I think there's plenty of other things that Colombia does well, but I think that unfortunately that's something that has been juicy on Netflix series or all the other different platforms.
Cartagena.
is a beautiful city with
People vacation
historical.
there.
Yeah, historically, the Spanish.
It's
Fort.
better now than it was in the 80s or 90s, correct?
That's right.
It's kind of switched places with Venezuela.
No, I mean I think Venezuela is a mess in terms of Colombians used to go to Venezuela because Venezuela was more economically prosperous, and now a bunch of Venezuela. I mean, more than 2 million Venezuelans are in Colombia.
Wow.
As refugees. So in that sense, it switched places. But Colombia still has a large drug export. I mean, there's still a ton of money going around Colombia.
And a lot of sex trafficking.
Yeah,
I mean, some of the
that's been a
stories you told
growing.
me that
Yep.
you've encountered were just so sad.
Yeah,
And Americans taking advantage of that.
That's right. That's been a growing thing that we've seen. It's particularly come to light over the last few years,
Yeah.
and it's been in the news.
On the other hand, one of the things that's encouraging is the burgeoning growth of healthy churches.
Mm-hmm.
And just as one anecdote, I enjoyed being with you, what was that, a year ago?
A couple of years ago, yeah.
And have you been there, Mark? I had the experience of preaching to a church that met in the house, a mansion that had been converted to kind of a church building, of the widow of some mafia drug lord.
Yeah.
And you told me many stories about mansions of various cartel leaders,
Yeah.
now churches.
That's
Our
right.
Lady of Pharma.
That's right. So how common is that?
I know of 3 churches very close to where I live that were meeting in past drug lord
Wow.
buildings. Yeah.
And tell the one story about the widow, a mistress.
Yeah.
So widow's not even the right word. The mistress
Yeah.
who had all this money.
Yeah. So just some of the challenges that, I don't know, probably most of the listeners of Pastors Talk don't run into. So there's a woman in our local church who had been the mistress of a drug lord, and he was assassinated. And so he had put a bunch of properties in her name. And so that was basically what she had moving forward. Like
she becomes a
apartment
Christian.
properties. Yeah. And then she became a believer. And then the question kind of becomes, what do I do with this now? She has a daughter with this, who's also the daughter of this drug lord. And that's kind of what she has to live off of.
All of these properties.
Moving. Yeah. And so she put them into, the question is, do you give them back? But who do you give them back to? He bought it with drug money, but how can you even identify that? So she was a generous person in the church, trying to help out wherever there were needs. And she would rent out these properties, and that was what they lived off of.
Mark, have your elders ever had to deal with the converted mistresses of drug cartel lords trying to figure out what to do with all these properties?
I mean, there's that one lady you knew, but no, not that I can remember.
And it's also just praise the Lord.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking yesterday afternoon. One of my best friends was, before he became a believer, he was a hitman.
Uh-huh.
And he's now has a construction business and leads the new members class at
A mafia
one of the
hitman.
local. That's right.
Just like a brother we visited not long ago in South Africa. Yeah, Mario. Anyway.
State of the church in general in Colombia. A lot of Roman Catholic pressures.
Is Colombia historically a Methodist country?
It is not. Different kind
Lutheran.
of Methodism. Different kind of Methodism. So Roman Catholicism has historically been by far and continues to be, but it's a lot of a cultural Roman Catholicism, and there's a lot of nominal Roman Catholics. So
I'd assume the majority is.
it's very superstitious culture. So people there would be elements that are very much part of their day-to-day lives.
You should assume that with most people.
That's right. And then I think some of the estimates would even say getting close to 20% would claim to be evangelicals now.
Oh, wow.
But that a large percentage of that is going to be prosperity, somewhere on the prosperity gospel spectrum.
And that's been exploding in the last few decades, prosperity gospel?
That's right. So
Presumably?
I think that probably over the last 30 to 40 years is when kind of evangelicalism has grown, and a lot of that has been Pentecostal. The traditional Pentecostal denominations are much more interested in the scriptures, and they're a lot easier and I think there's a lot more that have been born again in those denominations. And the neo-Pentecostals are where it's much more of a health, wealth, and prosperity gospel type thing.
So of that 20% of quote unquote Christians in the entire country,
Yeah.
that 20% that would identify in some sense as evangelical, you're assuming how many of them would preach and affirm the same gospel that we preach and affirm? I mean, is it a tiny
6%?
percentage? 6%?
I mean, no, not of the 20%. So maybe
Of the 20%.
Of the 20%, probably, I don't know, whatever that comes out to.
A third?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that. 25% of that.
So how big is the city of Medellin?
4 million.
How many gospel preaching churches are in Medellin?
I'm guessing probably 25 to 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's not nothing.
Oh, it's definitely not nothing.
Praise
The Lord
the
has
Lord.
done great things.
Yeah. What's the history of missions? And specifically, well, I was going to say American missions, but missions in general to Colombia. Is it a good history, a bad history?
I think that there was a lot of influence from Pentecostalism, and even when more Orthodox denominations showed up in Colombia, they were influenced quite a bit by Pentecostal theology, and kind of adopted more Pentecostal type theology, and in the group of Baptist churches that I've been part of for almost 19 years now, originated with the help from some Baptists coming from Canada, and I generally we're healthy churches. I think when I arrived there, one of the founding pastors would say that they were kind of in the wilderness, in some wilderness years. They'd kind of gone into kind of a therapeutic gospel is what they would call it. Not necessarily the grossest forms of prosperity gospel, but much more kind of come to Jesus and he'll kind of fix things in your life.
Bring healing,
and
bring
relationships.
purpose.
That's right.
Do many American churches these days get involved in work in Colombia? Do churches send down a team to do this or that with the orphanage or to partner in evangelism? Is that something you see a lot of or no?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I wouldn't say that the general population is very aware of that, but I think in the role that I have and being connected with other Christians and with lots of churches, I think I see and hear about a lot of American churches.
David, if there's a pastor listening to this who maybe has been to Medellin or they've been to Colombia or they've had the short-term mission trips from their church go down there, and you just wanted to give them something to go, hey, you may not have realized this. What would you tell them about Christianity in Colombia? Obviously, they know Roman Catholicism is big. What might surprise a lot of the people who are watching this about Christianity in Colombia?
I think they might be surprised at the superficiality of the Christianity in Colombia.
Even of the brothers and sisters we agree with?
No.
You mean more?
Yeah,
okay.
I meant the broader. Yeah, I meant the broader. The broader group. So guys that I'm assuming the guys that are listening to pastors talk, I think if they've had connections in Colombia, hopefully it's been with some good guys. I mean, there's some of the networks that are working here that at work here in the U.S. have begun to have an influence down in Colombia as well, and are making connections. I think that's one of the ways that when churches can partner, churches in the U.S. can partner with a local church where they see a pastor, a group of pastors that are trying to walk in a healthy direction, and kind of walk alongside them and partner with them, make visits down, have them come up and do those kinds of things. I think those are helpful.
How can a pastor here find a pastor there? What's the way to do that?
Well, they're definitely welcome to reach out to us at Poema.
David at Poiema .co.
Except it's Adams at
Adams, A-D-1-D, A-D-A-M-S, at Poiema.co.
Feel free to give Mark's email as well.
That's right. Yeah. And he will just forward the email on.
And David will respond more quickly if you send in box tops of your favorite cereal.
That's right. The UPC codes.
Running joke. Your comment about surprised by how shallow it is. Was that your word, shallow? No.
Probably, or
Yeah.
superficial.
Superficial. That's what you said. If I'm sharing the gospel in the District of Columbia, I feel like in all likelihood, I'm going to encounter secularism and a kind of disdain for Christianity. Whereas if you drive a few miles into the county where I live in Maryland, PG County, I feel like more likely than not, I'm going to find nominal Christianity, right? And I'm going to get somebody who will quickly affirm some of the things I say about the gospel.
Tell you that they pray every morning.
Yeah, totally. And they'll have some church. Oh, what church? Oh, it's sort of thing.
They believe in the Lord. They like the Bible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I assume sharing the gospel in Colombia is more like the latter.
That's right.
And you're training your people to do that in the face of all kinds of different forms of Christian nominalism. So you're not encountering secularism, you're encountering nominalism. Accurate?
Yep. For the most part.
How do you help people share the gospel in that context?
Well, my passion is helping people to go deeper in the gospel and to understand the gospel more clearly. So for instance, we just published. We just were able to get the rights to Greg Gilbert's book, What is the Gospel?
Okay.
And do a new edition of that and get 7,000 copies out in Mexico just a week ago.
That's great.
And so we're excited about resources like that. That, you know, that's not the resource. And I understand from our friends at Crossway that a lot of people give those books out to their non-Christian friends, which I expect has been helpful for a lot of people. I don't think that's why Greg wrote that book. I think he wrote it to help Christians to understand and being able to more clearly enunciate the gospel.
Yeah, no, I think that's right.
So we're excited about resources like that. We also try to make little resources that are helpful for people to give out to others. But at the end of the day, one of the things that we're most passionate about is resources to help people build up their local churches, because we think that that's the best way to do evangelism.
Are Christians in Colombia readers?
In general, yeah, not generally, but we've been really encouraged to see more and more people reading and creating. You know, we talk about a culture of discipleship, and I think kind of not too far or adjacent to that is a culture of reading.
One, as a Christian publisher, that's one of the things you're helping to engender, no doubt.
Yeah.
Now, if you ask Mark the question, hey, Mark, when you got here in 1994, how many good evangelical churches were here in 94? He would have said, 2 or 3, right?
Okay.
Whereas you ask him now, he would say something like what you just said, 24, 25, 30.
Scores.
Yeah. Your answer to the question a moment ago, you said, probably 24, I think you said.
25, 30, yeah.
Yeah, in just Medellin.
That's right.
Are those recent? Is that a growth? Is that, I mean, I'm looking for a trend line here.
Yeah, I would say that they've definitely been growing. So the group of churches that I've been connected with are Baptist churches. I think when I arrived there were 3 getting ready to plant the 4th. And they've been churches that even when they were not the healthiest, they were really, they really wanted to be planting other churches and not just becoming mega churches, which I think was good. And so through that network of churches has continued to plant, and as they've grown more healthy and theologically and ecclesiologically, they've continued to be planting other churches, which are obviously going to be looking more and more in the healthy and healthy direction. And so I think just in that network of churches, of Baptist churches, there are 17 now in different parts of the Medellin metro area. And then I know of several other good churches who, even though I haven't spent a ton of time with them, I believe I know the pastors, and I think they're preaching the gospel faithfully. So that's why I think they're growing. I just learned of somebody this afternoon before I was going to walk over here that said was a reaching and teaching missionary that was going to be going to Medellin, who I haven't met yet.
Any 9 Marks resources been particularly popular or helpful with churches or Christians in Colombia?
Yeah, so your book on membership has been really helpful. I know of several churches that use that.
My book on membership?
Jonathan Leeman's. You're right. I think not everybody's watching the video.
But I learned it all from you, Mark.
Okay.
And has been really helpful.
You can stroke his shoulder a little bit.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I try to champion the discipleship book. I really like that one that Jonathan did not write.
No, I didn't.
The discipling book?
Yeah.
In English?
That one.
The
Yeah.
other blue one. It's
Yeah.
also blue.
Yeah.
There's a good one on church discipline.
Now you're just
We
playing
use
your audience.
we use the there is a good one on church discipline. We use that one as well.
Do you keep the same colors when you publish them that Crossway has?
We do the same colors. And in fact, the other one I was going to mention which is what is a healthy church. You may not be aware, there's a new edition that's come out in English. And it now it looks like the rest of
Building
that Building
Healthy
Healthy
Churches.
Churches series.
I've seen it. We didn't identify it as a second edition, though it is rewritten.
There it is.
It's got a new chapter. Did you know that?
Yeah, it's got a couple new things in there. We Taylor Hartley worked on that. I worked on that. It's trying to do the adding missions and prayer like we did in the fourth edition of 9 Marks of a Healthy Church. So it's an updated. So you've already done this in Spanish.
We have done the first edition, and we're undertaking as we speak. There are some people working on figuring out how much needs to be retranslated, and definitely translating the new chapter.
You would say, like, if this has been useful for Christians in Colombia, like a 5, you would say that John's book on church membership has been useful, like a.
Yeah, I think this one
4,
I think
7,
this one has been
83.
I think more people have read this book.
Oh,
What is a
than
healthy
Jonathan's
church,
on church membership?
than the one on
Well,
church
that's surprising
membership.
to me.
Yeah, I think that fewer churches use that than we have been able to give away.
It's a very good one.
It is. I like the colors too.
Yeah, it's basic. It's helpful.
Yep.
I'm always encouraged when people compliment the colors of my books. I'm like, it was worthwhile.
exactly.
Now, you did
Put in the
actually put
energy.
thought into those colors.
No, that's true. I did. I said to them, I went Crayola colors. That's what I said to Crossway, and they did it.
And that works cross-culturally?
On more, well, that was where I was going to go. So church membership,
I do not. I refuse to call them the Rainbow Collection.
reclaim the rainbow.
I'm with
collection.
Jonathan. Reclaim the rainbow. Read
Yeah.
Genesis. So the publishing that you do, Crossway is fine for you at Poema, just to grab their artwork of the covers and all that.
Yeah, Crossway is a great partner to work with. They're very globally minded and wanting to see the gospel to go out. So not only for Spanish, but in all kinds of languages.
Seriously, just so people can understand, in Colombia, other than 9 Marks, what would be some Christian work here in the U.S. that's helpful to Christianity in Colombia?
Yeah, Ligonier has been really helpful to people understanding Reformed theology in the Spanish, not just Colombia, but in the entire Spanish-speaking world. Desiring God, John Piper stuff has been really helpful. Reformation Heritage has been really helpful with several resources from the Puritans.
Banner of Truth?
Yeah, Banner of Truth has not gotten as much far of a reach. I think for a few different reasons, but definitely has had a big impact on those of us that are doing publishing.
So the things that we talk about, healthy church principles that we talk about, like expositional preaching, membership discipline, plurality of elders, those work, quote unquote, in a place like Colombia.
Cross-culturally.
Correct? That's not just a American thing.
Well, what I like about the books is that they rooted in the scriptures, and so I think those are the same scriptures that the traditional old line Pentecostal movements have been studying, and that if I show them something from there, they're going to listen, and they may not have like an immediate just like, okay, wow, I'm going to drop everything and change, but my next conversation with them and over months and relationships, I see them going in more healthy directions and being convinced by things and starting to implement things that they're seeing in these books. So yes, it is. It's cross-cultural in that sense.
Anything else that we need to know about your work?
Yeah, I think that as people are listening to this, I'm assuming the majority in North America probably think about the mission field that's coming to you, that's coming to your neighborhood. So, maybe the people where you're getting your coffee, maybe the people that are working, at the local store that you're talking to,
The doctors we go to, the lawyers we hire.
all of these things, Spanish may be their heart language. And that may be, there may be a resource. One of the things that's helpful about our translations is a lot of times people know the book and they can say, honestly, they can say, hey, this book has been really helpful to me. I didn't read it in Spanish, but I got you a copy in Spanish.
So get some copies of Poema books
I think
here in the U.S.
Do you depend on American donors?
It's definitely helpful. We try to do a model that is sustainable so that we would not just die if it weren't for support from churches here. But what that allows us to do, we could probably be sustainable publishing 4 to 6 books a year. And
instead we're
doing like 24.
Oh, that's so good.
That is great. So if listeners are interested in Spanish speaking work going on, both in Colombia as well as around the world, through the great work of Poema, they can go to your website, www.poema.co. And if they want to find out, if they want to just go to to the English language thing, they can do like the / that you mentioned earlier, and then partner. Okay.
Yeah, poema.co/partner. And they can find out more information in English about what we do and get newsletters and that kind of stuff. But then also, as people are thinking about doing short-term mission trips, as they're thinking about supporting long-term missionaries, find out what are they using as they're doing discipleship? What are they using in their churches as they're evangelizing, as they are training elders? What are the resources that they're using and find out?
Yeah. We love partnering with you and are grateful for your work.
Oh, praise God.
Thanks for your time.
Super thankful and it's a privilege to be able to work together.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, David.
For more articles, books, and podcasts, please visit ninemarks.org.